looking to follow up on the biggest draw audience in months last Monday with the feeling that the product is heating back up heading into the SummerSlam pay-per-view. The company promoted two major first-time-ever matches from the start with Chris Benoit vs. Van Dam for the IC title, and an all-time dream match of Rock vs. Ric Flair at the Greensboro Coliseum, with the Flair-Rock match coming days after the company reportedly booked the Hogan vs. Rock WrestleMania 18 rematch to headline the SmackDown broadcast on short notice last Thursday before Rock allegedly turned it down. Advertised with a few hours of hype, with the company only announcing it on the WWE website Raw preview on Monday afternoon, with the show seeing Eric Bischoff in his second show in charge after the big success of the debut broadcast, introducing the Test Christian Storm Un-Americans group as his new signings to also bring the tag titles to the Raw brand. Confronted by Shawn Michaels a week after the turn demanding Eric to book him against Triple H for tonight or he will find himself wherever he is in the building, with Raw after last Monday starting the 3-month high viewership with its highest opening segment in months, seeing a major drop of 1 million viewers on the night to go from a 3.7 to a 3.1 rating. After one of the lowest rated opening segments of the year, Raw picked up 500,000 viewers to a 3.4 rating over the next 15 minutes, with Booker T vs. Eddie Guerrero going 6 minutes, along with the start of the show-long angle with Michaels looking for Hunter all over the building, and with WWE last Monday announcing re-evaluated business figures from the May to July quarter following drops in viewership, attendance and pay-per-view numbers as compared to the peak of the start of the year. The new NWA TNA, who started the company as the first ever pay-per-view only model in the business, begun to face the reality of the current state of the industry, with founder Jerry Jarrett while commenting on the content of the weekly shows since the hiring of Vince Russo as the head writer of the company, noting that they tried to present an alternative to McMahon's sports entertainment product, but the market is not there to sustain it, with the number of buys for the shows not coming close to the projected target of 50,000 weekly buys, saying that the projection number was based on the recent WWE figures average of 300 to 400,000 buys a month, but they found out that the hardcore wrestling audience is not enough to carry the company, which is why they're attempting to create a broader fan base under the Russo creative regime, in addition to trying to find opportunities to potentially launch a weekly show either on cable or network television, confirming Vince McMahon's public prediction on the pay-per-view only business model weeks before the company launched, with him saying that it's close to impossible to draw a big enough audience without a promotional vehicle on television, as well as asking people to pay $10 a week for a 2-hour show when they can already watch 4 hours of the biggest names and best production values in the industry for free on UPN and TNN. With Raw after a slower climb than usual during the first hour, picking up 700,000 viewers past the first quarter after already opening lower than usual, closing it in the final segment at 9:45 p.m. drawing an hour-high 3.6 rating for a Jeff Hardy vs. Bradshaw hardcore title match, going 5 minutes with Jeff going over to win the belt, followed by a series of title changes with Johnny the Bull and Dreamer running in post-match, with Raw placing the first of the two top advertised matches at 10 p.m. with the first Raw Van Dam vs. Chris Benoit match for the IC title, with the match after being announced a week in advance, with Benoit winning a #1 contender match last Monday to set up one of the most anticipated matches for both Benoit and Van Dam over the past year, going 11 minutes over the full top of the hour quarter to gain over 500,000 viewers to a 3.8 rating, ending with Benoit going over to win the IC title while leaving an opening for a potential rematch at SummerSlam with Benoit's opponent for the pay-per-view originally scheduled to be Steve Austin before the forced changes of the past 2 months. With Eric Bischoff featured all over WWE programming since making his first TV appearance on July 15, The latest cover story on Confidential Saturday saw Eric in the headlines again with the downfall of WCW from its peak of just a few years back. The main topic covered during the show, with back-and-forth comments from the former WCW talent perspective to Eric explaining the political environment dealing with Time Warner during the merger at the time, with Eric after giving Moolah and Mae Young 3 minutes of TV time to promote Moolah's new book, bringing back the Island Boys Rosie and Jamal for the second straight week to take them out, and with Shawn Michaels fully back in the company as one of the most featured performers on television over the past month. Michaels made his first house show appearance since before retiring in early 1998 to see his role being changed from originally being advertised to be in Nash's corner during his matches, to being featured in promo segments on Friday and Saturday, hyping the eventual Triple H return match on shows in Houston and San Antonio, interrupted by Stevie Richards to set up a spot of Michaels laying him out with a super kick on both nights, with both shows also seeing rapid changes to the advertised main event matches due to the recent roster jumps between the brands, with Lesnar still working the Raw shows despite jumping to SmackDown in tag matches of him teaming with Big Show against Taker and Booker. After the Taker Un-Americans angle to start the build to a Test vs Taker match, Raw took 2 commercial breaks over the next 15 minutes between 10:30 to 45 p.m. while in the middle seeing a Rock backstage promo recapping the recent angles since winning the title at last Sunday's Vengeance pay-per-view, with Rock after a comedic bit with Coach moving on to business first, with him again calling out Brock Lesnar after the past week of Lesnar dodging their confrontation in the build to the SummerSlam main event, with the pay-per-view's venue at the Nassau Coliseum rapidly selling out the building on Saturday morning in less than 90 minutes, exactly a month to the event, followed by Rock hyping the big headliner for tonight with the first ever Rock vs. Ric Flair match in the middle of Flair Country at North Carolina, built by Rock as a match decades in the making, with him growing up a big Flair fan throughout the 80s, saying that a year ago he never thought he would be wrestling 2 of the industry's all-time greatest icons in Hogan and Flair for the first time in a span of a few months, with Flair publicly saying in numerous interviews over the past 4 years while still under WCW contract that he would like to work a major program with Rock when he eventually returns to the company, including an added connection between them being that Flair, while in the middle of the legal dispute against WCW in mid-1998, strongly rumored to jump to the WWF as McMahon's corporate champion, which ended up being Rock later in the year, closing the 8-minute promo with the Flair strut hyping up the match as a classic coming up next, with the final quarter in a similar formatting to last week, opening with the Triple H Shawn Michaels angle, with Hunter coming out unannounced in his first appearance of the night almost 2 hours into the show, explaining the turn on Michaels, with Shawn turning down being his manager while still wanting to take the spotlight despite the game passing him by, with him unable to wrestle anymore, telling him to face the reality of his career being over and accept his offer to continue to build the anticipation for Michaels' in-ring return, followed by a major injury angle of Michaels being attacked in the parking lot minutes earlier. One of the biggest dream matches in the history of the business, with 2 of its Mount Rushmore names facing off for the first time, saw the entrances taking place at 10:57 p.m. with Rock vs. Flair as arguably the 2 greatest performers the industry has ever seen, seeing a unique display of ring psychology, with Rock as the top babyface in the business working the match as almost a full heel for a night to build the heat from Flair's hometown crowd, with subtle mannerisms throughout directing the crowd reaction, signaling from the start, first with the facial expressions followed by him bailing out of the ring in a usual heel spot after a series of arm drag exchanges, with Rock making it clearer to the crowd who popped big for both in the next spot by taking the first punch of the match as a cheap shot in the corner to cement the one-night heel turn in a brilliant performance of crowd work before selling big for Flair's comebacks for the rest of the match. seeing the first and only Rock vs. Flair singles match going 7 minutes into the 9-minute overrun, gaining over 800,000 viewers to peak the night by an over 600,000 viewers margin from any other quarter on the show, drawing a 4.4 rating in the only segment to hover around the 6 million viewers range, ending up with Rock going over before turning back to shake Flair's hand with Raw, as both programs did since the new general managers were introduced, closing the show with another major jump between the brands of Chris Jericho laying out Flair to announce himself as the new Raw performer, starting the Flair-Jericho program to SummerSlam while building up intrigue on who's gonna show up on SmackDown to counter it in 3 days.